Hello and welcome back to another edition of Sound Smart. I'm your host, Tony Cabral. Now this week we're going to be talking about cashmere. Yes, the kind of wood that comes from goats that make the best sweaters in the world. Cashmere is also a song by Led Zeppelin off of their Physical Graffiti album. And cashmere also so happens to be the name of a region in northwest India that is currently facing a huge political and humanitarian crisis that nobody seems to be talking about. So here's the backstory. Kashmir lies right on the border between Pakistan and India. And for all those new to South Asian politics, Pakistan and India don't really get along with one another. Since 1947, the whole region has been disputed about who should control it, given the fact that most of Kashmir is Muslim and Pakistan is a Muslim state. But India was able to get the region in 1947 through an instrument of accession to the Indian Union that, well, a lot of local officials signed in 1947. But since then, there have been civil unrest in Kashmir, particularly in 1948, 1965, 1971, and 1979, as well as many times well into the 21st century. But throughout all these conflicts, one thing has been constant the entire time. That is, Kashmir is its own independent state, separate from the Indian government. And that's because of Article 370 of the Indian Constitution, which guarantees that Kashmir is a special state that's allowed to make its own laws. So this special provision allowed Kashmir to be a special territory with special laws. And some say that this provision has been the cause of all the conflict over the past 70 years, whereas other people say that the provision has allowed Kashmir to keep its own identity for the past 7 decades. But over the summer, out of the blue, the Indian government decided to overturn Article 370. All of a sudden, Kashmir isn't so special. Now, like any good old political argument, there are usually two sides. Whether that be Hamilton and Jefferson, Halifax and Churchill, or duck season and rabbit season. But in this argument, we're taking a look at two of India's main political parties, particularly the Bharatiya Janata Party, or the BJP, so I don't need to butcher that name ever again, which is a nationalist party, and the Indian National Congress Party, which is a socialist party. Now, each party has their own position on what's happening in Kashmir. And luckily for us, the BBC published an article last Wednesday featuring 2 entries from each political party about what's happening in Kashmir right now. Let's start with Bajyant J. Panda of the BJP. And that's right, folks, his first name is Panda. Now, he started his opening remarks citing the 40,000 deaths that occurred in Kashmir under Article 370. Going so far as to say that Kashmir now has the potential to be infinitely better without Article 370. Now, his view is that Article 370 prevented progressive Indian laws to be passed in Kashmir, and that the full ascension of Kashmir into the Indian government will allow the region to enter into the modern age and allow the region to prosper with big businesses moving in. Sounds pretty good, right? But Shashish Tharoor of the Congress Party begs to differ. You see, he started his conversation saying the conflicts happened despite Article 370, not because of it. He cites how India prides itself with the democratic system, but India failed to reach out to any elected official or representative from Kashmir before deciding to pull the trigger. He goes on to say, many, however, worry that the short and medium term damage caused by this decision will greatly outweigh the theoretical long-term benefits. But what damage is he talking about? Okay, so I'll let you in on a little secret. The reason why this is not made international news is because Kashmir is on lockdown. So during this entire coup and everything that's been happening, schools have been indefinitely closed, stores and gas stations have ceased operations, television has been knocked out, landlines have been blocked, and the internet is down for the entire region. So what exactly is going on in Kashmir? Now, according to Al Jazeera, there are approximately 700,000 troops already stationed in Kashmir, with 10,000 troops all along the way. In addition to 70,000 people, mostly civilians, have been killed in the last 3 decades of armed conflict in Indian-administered Kashmir. So, if that's what happens when the lights are on in Kashmir, what happens when the lights go out? And according to the Post, the Washington Post that is, Kashmirian politicians and public figures are either being held in detention centers or are under house arrest, all while demonstrators are being shot at with pellets and with tear gas. With a media blackout and internal violence happening during a non-negotiable political takeover of this region, all while political leaders have been imprisoned, one might assume that this news would be breaking all over the world. And Furthermore, the fact that Article 370 came to an abrupt end and there's been an increase in military presence, all happening in such a short period of time, some red flags should be going off. But for a majority of the country, it hasn't. You see, news doesn't travel to the US as quickly as it travels out. And the Kashmirian crisis is something worth listening to. So if you hear any news about Kashmir in the next coming weeks, give it a listen. That is, if you hear about it. So will the long-term benefits outweigh the short and medium-term damage? Only time will tell, as it normally does with situations like this. But to end today's video, I leave you with a quote by India's own Gandhi. "The future depends on what we do in the present." If India plants some bad seeds in Kashmir today, what kind of toxic trees will be there tomorrow? For SoundSmart, my name is Tony Cabral. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe.